All right, so for today we are doing section 9.3a. Notice we didn't do like 9.2b, 9.2c, because we are kind of just going through some sections. Oh, wait a minute. Why did I put 9? It should be P. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. P.3. That should be intercept, but this should be the letter P. Sorry about that. But yeah, these are all like practice problems. So we're not doing everything that we used to do before. We're just kind of going through little pieces. So one thing that we thought was really important is that you guys remember how to find slopes and intercepts. Eventually we'll do slope intercept form. But for right now, just slopes and intercepts. So let's start off by talking about the slope formula. Okay, how do we find slope? So slope formula. So given 2 points, and they always call it x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. When we say sub, we mean like the numbers are little on the bottom, right? So x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. We can find slope using m, which is our slope, right? Lowercase m is defined as our slope. Uppercase m is, does anybody remember what we use like a capital letter M for? I think you guys have learned this before. It's for a midpoint. So whenever you guys used to try to find a midpoint between 2 points, you use capital letter M equals to. The lowercase letter m is slope, okay? So it's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, okay? People have told me, like, why do we use a sub 2 and a sub 1? What's the purpose of it? Well, literally, it's because the 2 points can't be the same. But visually, I always tell them, just think of the sub 2 of y and the sub 2 as x as the second point. The 2 for second, the 1 for the first point, right? So if they give you 1 point and another point, we'll call the first point you were given the sub 1s, call the second point you were given the sub 2s, right, for second. It just makes it easier to remember where to get the values from, okay? So you're going to be given problems that look similar to these formulas, okay? So I'll give you some problems here. So there's going to be a problem that looks like this. Number 5. It says find the slope of the line. Okay. And all they're going to give us is 2 points. So here's the one they're giving me. -1 comma -14 and 20 comma -14. And they want us to find the slope. So all we're going to do is use the formula. Now I'm going to write the formula again. You don't have to if you don't want to, but one of my common practices when I was in high school, and it just basically stood with me when I was in college, is every time I knew I had to use a formula, I would write the formula again. And it was an easy way for me to memorize it, because the more you write stuff, the more you remember it, right? So every time I do a problem that required formulas, I'd write out the formula. I know it was an extra step that wasn't necessary, but it helps me remember stuff. That way I didn't have to like sit at home trying to get that quadratic formula over there, right? Trying to memorize it by making a song. I would just write it over, right? And then eventually I'd get it. So here we go. The first point is -1, -14. So I'm going to put x1, y1. The second point was 20, -14. So I'll put x2, y2. See, that's how I relate the 1s and 2s on the subscript, right? So now all I got to do is just plug in the numbers. So here we go. M is equal to y sub 2, which is -14, minus y sub 1, which is -14. You'll notice the second number in the subtraction, I always put a parenthesis around it. I'm going to do that on purpose every time. And then x sub 2 on the bottom, that's 20, minus x sub 1, that's -1. So I always put a parenthesis around the second number because sometimes the second number is negative And since there's a minus in the middle, it may change the sign. In this case, it is. So here we go. We got m is equal to negative 14 plus 14 over 20 plus 1. Well, negative 14 plus 14 is 0 over 21. Well, 0 divided by 21, if you have 0 and you cut it into 21 parts, what do you have? Still have 0, right? So my answer is 0. And that's my slope. That's it. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll move on. Let's do number 8. Number 8 from your homework. Like I said, these are always going to be homework problems for you guys. That way, hopefully it encourages you to write down the notes and stuff. So we're going to find the slope of a line. And here are the 2 points that they're going to give us. Negative 14 comma 10 and negative 13 comma negative 7. So those are my 2 points. Again, I like to write down my x1, y1s, my x2, y2s. That way I don't mess up figuring out which one goes where. So I'll just write it down, x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? At this point, I'm going to write out my formula. Again, I just do it because it's my habit. If you don't want to, that's up to you. I just think it's helpful so I don't have to keep looking at notes to remember what the formula is, right? So I always like to write it down. So here we go. Let's write it down. We got m is equal to y2, that's negative 7, minus y1, that's 10. Notice again, I put the 10 in a parentheses. Just it's a habit of mine to always put the second number in a parenthesis in case it's negative. Over, and then x2, that's negative 13 minus x1, that's negative 14. So m is equal to, well, negative 7 minus 10, that's negative 17. Negative 13 plus 14 is what I have on the bottom. It's going to change signs. Well, negative 13 plus 14 is a 1. So I get m is equal to negative 17 over 1. So my slope is negative 17. It could be either negative 17 over 1 or just negative 17. But I just kind of simplified it. Sometimes the answers are fractions. Sometimes they're just whole numbers or integers. So, I mean, if you get a fraction, it doesn't mean necessarily that you did anything wrong. Okay? It just means it's a fraction. Okay? Now, I'm going to do only one of the following type. I'm going to do like we'll do number 1. So you're going to kind of notice I kind of skipped ahead a little bit just to try to make a point with the formula. But then I'm going backwards. Number 1. It says find the slope. But in this case, they're not going to give us 2 points. Okay? They're going to give us a picture. Let me go ahead and draw this out. So I'm only doing one of these. There's actually 4 total. I'm going to do 1 because the rest are the same. Okay, they don't really differ that much. So they're going to give us a picture of a line. One of the points is here at 1, 0. The other point is at negative 2, 2. So right here. Okay. And then they drew a line. So let me kind of go ahead and kind of draw a line here. It's going to be a little messy with the line. I'm trying not to cover over the red dots because the dots are really important. So if they want me to find the slope, I just got to identify the points and use the slope formula. So let's figure out what these points are. This point right there. Well, that point is negative 2, 2. This other point right there is 1, 0. And now that I have those 2 points, I can do exactly what I just did in numbers 5 and number 8, right? Just put it into a formula. So I got 2 points right there, negative 2, 2, and 1, 0. So let's write down the formula here. Well, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to label my x1, y1, my x2, y2. So x1, y1, x2, y2. And now I'm just going to plug them in, find an answer. So here we go. So m is equal to y2, 0, minus y1. Sorry. Oh, yeah, y1 is a 2. So I'm going to put in a parenthesis, the second number. Then x2, that's 1, minus x1, that's negative 2. So you can see that number was negative. It's important that I keep it negative, so I put a parenthesis around it. Let's simplify. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. On the bottom, it's going to become 1 plus 2, because two negatives make a positive. So my slope is a negative 2 over 3. Remember, slopes can be fractions. They can be normal numbers. Okay? So there you go. You'll have 3 more of these to do. Now I got one more example, and then we're done. Because if you look at the homework, it looks like this, and the back is empty. Okay? So it's pretty short. Okay? It's 10 problems, but they're not that hard to do. So the last part is going to be a problem where they ask you to identify the x and y intercepts. Okay? The x and y intercepts. So first, let me introduce you guys to x and y intercepts. So what are intercepts? Okay, what are intercepts? So intercepts is where a line crosses the x-axis or the y-axis, okay? So the x-intercept this is where the line crosses the x-axis. Right now, I'll pause the video just so you guys can catch up with the definitions. And the y-intercept this is where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to pause it right now. So usually what you're going to do to try to find intercepts is you're going to get the line that they give you. You're supposed to make a table of values and draw the line. And then when you draw the line, you're going to try to figure out where did it cross the x-axis, where did it cross the y-axis. But what happens if your line's a little crooked, right? If you're not using a ruler, you're not using your ID card, and your line's kind of going a little wavy and stuff, like you're going to get the wrong answer for your x and y intercepts because your line's not going straight. So there's a little workaround to that, a little, I guess you could say a little cheat. It looks like this. You're going to create a table of values, okay? And it's going to look like this. You're only going to have to do 2 calculations, okay? For the first one, the first part of your table, you're going to let y equal to 0. Plug it in, and then you're going to solve for x. And then for the second part, you're going to let x equal to 0. And then you're going to plug that in and solve for y. Okay, it's like doing 2 little mini problems. Okay, so the top answer will be your x-intercept. The bottom answer will be your y-intercept. So whatever the point comes out on top, that's your x-intercept. The point on the bottom is your y-intercept. If you set it up the way I did it. If you do it the other way, if you put 0 first on x and then 0 on y for the other one, then you have them backwards. So I always tell people, do it like that. Okay, so this is your little cheat right here. So let me show you one of these things. We'll do number 10 and then we're done. Okay? So let's keep that in our sight. Number 10 says find the x and y intercepts and then graph. So find the x and y intercepts Then they say graph. And here's the equation. X plus 2y equals to 2. Now remember what I told you. We're going to kind of use a little hack, right? We're going to get that table of values that I wrote up there, and we're going to utilize it right now. So here we go. X and y right here. 0 goes first there. 0 goes second right there. So first step, plug in y equals 0. So I'm going to put, you don't have to write this out. I'm just trying to help you out with steps, okay? So you know what I did. I'm going to let y equals 0 into that formula. So I get x plus 2 times 0 equals 2. Well, 2 times 0, that's 0. So it's just x equals 2. So I'm going to put the 2 right there. 2, 0. That's my x-intercept, okay? That's my point, 2, 0. So I'll write it right here to the side. 2, 0. That's my x-intercept. Now let's find the y-intercept. I got to let x equals 0 this time. So according to my formula, the x plus 2y equals 2, I'm going to let x equal 0. So it's 0 plus 2y equals 2. Well, 0 plus 2y is just 2y. 2y equals 2. I got to divide by 2 to get y by itself. So y is equal to 1. So I'm going to fill in that 1 right under the y column. So my other point is a 0, 1. Now these 2 points are really important. So I'm going to kind of highlight them for us, okay? Because I got a graph. They told me they want me to graph. So I found the x-intercept. The x-intercept is 2, 0. The y-intercept is 0, 1. All I'm going to do now is graph them and connect the dots to make a line. So here we go. Wait a second. So I'm just going to create a coordinate plane. Now, you guys will already have graphs provided for you, so don't worry about having to draw them out. Let me make my tick marks here. All right, let's plot these 2 points, okay? One of the points is 2, 0. 2 zeros right there. Remember I told you that was the x-intercept? Notice it's on the x-axis, right? This is our x-axis. This is our y-axis. So it's true. That is the x-intercept. It's right on the x-axis. And then the other point is 0, 1. That point goes right there, 0, 1. And notice that's on the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. All I got to do now is connect the dots and I'm done. Okay, so here we go. Connecting the dots. If your line isn't straight, it's okay. I recommend using your ID card. It's easy. Okay, you don't need to have a big old ruler, right? Your ID card works great. And I'm done. So my x-intercept, I'm going to kind of label it here. This is x-intercept, y-intercept, right? That's what we solved for. X-intercept, y-intercept. Then they said graph it. There you go. I graphed it. We're done. Okay, so you guys are going to have questions like this on your homework. They're not terribly difficult. You either need to use the formula or you use this little table, okay, if they ask for intercepts.